Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
There's just a fair bit going on. Best family, isn't there, in the Eagles world at the moment? My goodness. We're dominating headlines left, right and centre. And let's be honest, not much of it is in a positive sense, Drew Jones. It's a crazy time to be a Weagle right now.
Garby, this could be a 4-hour podcast. We're just going to condense it into a nice and consumable 30-minute window. But, when it rains, it pours for the Eagles right now. What a tough initiation it's been for Andrew McQualter. And, we're not ticking a lot of boxes right now as a footy club, are we?
Not at all. And, I got up nice and early for the podcast, as per your time demands. And then I forgot that you were in Adelaide. So the time you gave me was actually half an hour earlier than it needed to be. I'm having a baby soon, Drew. Those half an hours are very, very important when it comes to sleep, my friend.
You know that if the sleep debt doesn't carry over to the next day. So
I do know that.
I'm sorry you missed out on half an hour sleep. I assume you were just watching highlights of Declan Rice while you waited.
No, I was watching the Masters channel, mate, but well done to your Gunners.
Thank you.
All right, let's get on to pressing issues because I don't have any time to waste. There's a big agenda of items to talk about at the Eagles. Let's start with the GWS game and another issue that was kind of an offshoot of that, which was the Harry Edwards omission, which was a big talking point amongst Eagles faithful around that game. I mean, firstly, the game, I was there. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Smashed out of the middle again against a red-hot team, mind you, that were out for blood. Adam Kingsley at three-quarter time. If you'd walked into the stadium at three-quarter time, you would have thought it was an even ball game. Kingsley was fuming, and he demanded his team to put the foot on the pedal, and they polled on another 6 goals late. But the first half was shocking, obviously. I mean, the manner in which we gave up contested ball and the ease in which they were able to move the ball with limited pressure from us was just like a throwback to the last few years, which is something we thought wouldn't happen under a new coach. We know the midfield's got issues. So, for mine, it's just Jack Graham and Liam Baker have to play in the midfield like 80% of the time at centre bounce and stoppage, and then just chuck in like Tim Kelly or Harley Reid or some of the other youngsters, Tom Gross or Clay Hall around them. But we need those two big bodies, contested ball winners in there, or else we're just no chance in any football game at the moment. That's my one takeaway in that sense. And then there's no pressure anywhere else, Drew, because our small forwards have been really poor so far this season. Like Jamie Cripps has been our best small forward, and he's almost certainly in his last season. Brockman, Long, Owies have all been really, really poor. And we were told all preseason we're going to be a forward half, lock the ball in team, play it in our half. There's been none of that. The chase and tackling from those guys was just substandard. So those are the two big takeaways for me before we get on to Harry Edwards.
Yeah, so I trust your eye. You're at the game. But the combination of losing clearance and contested ball and then being unable to get the ball back is just a shocking combination in terms of just being a fan and watching your team play. Like GWS, when they wanted to control the ball by foot and in the air, they could. And they were almost always first to the ball, harder in the contest. And that is just a recipe for disaster. That, I don't want to single out Clay Hall because I think he's been okay when he's been given the opportunity. But there were just a couple of times where he was on the defensive side for West Coast, and then he would allow his man to just gently nudge him around to the other side of the stoppage, and that would just completely leave the front of the stoppage open. No one would rotate around. And then Briggs would just tap the ball down for Callahan to run onto, or, for one of, Kelly streaming through, whatever it might have been. And that, to me, it was just out of sync and symptomatic of our issues in the midfield at the moment, to allow a team so strong through the midfield to just waltz out of stoppage so easily. Tim Kelly is a shell of the player that he used to be, and I know he's got mitigating circumstances at home, and he's already admitted that footy isn't fun for him at the moment. So I understand there's more to the story than just looking at one stoppage or one contest, but he just looks like he's running around in honey or in hummus, and everyone else is just running on top of the ground. Like, it's just unfortunate, hard to watch. I said to you after the game, or maybe it was even during the game, like, can we spin the magnet for Kelly somewhere else to try and utilise his strengths? Because we're just not getting anything out of the midfield. But then you made the point that we don't really have anyone else to go in there, so it's sort of a tough situation for Andrew McQualter. So, I mean, there's no shame in getting soundly beaten by GWS at their ground. They're potentially going to win a flag. They're a sensational team, beautifully coached, great structure, great club. But again, it's just, as we've talked about this so much, just the manner of the defeat was just hard to cop. And then, the Harry Edwards thing, I take the lead because I believe you may have bumped into him at the game. But, this is an interesting one.
Yeah, I did see him at the game, and to say he was not best pleased would be an understatement. And I think most Eagles fans would be happy that Harry Edwards is filthy that he's been left out of the team. So he should be. I think it's a very harsh decision. Now, there are a number of factors to this. There's clearly something that the West Coast coaching staff aren't happy with him in terms of his application, and that's fine. So the word is that he's too focused on trying to mark and be an intercept player rather than just being a lockdown player on the full forward and punching and spoiling and worrying about those sorts of things, because he has been a pseudo intercept player a fair bit, and maybe he spent too much time around.
You need to drop him for
Big
that.
Gov.
Garby, couldn't you just say to him, mate, you're playing this week on Hogan, so I don't want to see you go for one intercept mark. Just spoil it.
Yeah, so that's the point I was getting to. Now, maybe they've done that stuff because he was subbed off against Freo, remember? So
that's true.
There may have been a fair bit of tactical play in that in terms of getting us back in the game, but I dare say they weren't happy with a few things either, and maybe they've given him that message and he hasn't heeded it yet. But that's also part of coaching, getting your talents to adapt and getting a message through to them and moulding them as players. And maybe they've tried and Harry hasn't taken to it yet, and they've decided to make that change. And there's a matchup thing. So you look at GWS's forward line and it's fantastic, of course, we know that. But, Cadman's not a beast of a forward, so you could get by with playing, say, a Marek on him, and then you only need the one true key defender, and they went for Sandy Brock in this game. I just think it was the wrong game to do that. You're up against the Coleman medalist, the best contested mark in the competition. To throw a debutant up against him is the epitome of throwing a player to the wolves. Now, Sandy Brock competed hard. Sandy Brock may well be a find. I'm happy with him in the team. But having 9 kicked on him wasn't going to necessarily help him or the team. Would Harry have made a big difference overall? Probably not. But it just didn't seem like the right decision for this game. Not for Sandy, not for everyone overall, and certainly not for Harry Edwards, who is probably thinking right now, what on earth's going on? And back to Harry. There's talent there. Now, there's some who have written him off in the last few weeks, which I can't really understand, because we've seen enough, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years of Harry Edwards at the club to suggest that there is an AFL talent there. He's had some ups, he's had some downs. His fitness and conditioning wasn't great, a couple seasons ago when he got turned badly in games. But I thought from the middle part of last season, he started to show really good signs, to the point where we were satisfied letting Tom Barrass go for those draft picks, because we knew we had a young key defender coming through who needed opportunities. This season, hasn't been great, but like everyone in the defence, they haven't had much of a chance because the midfield's getting slaughtered. I think we need to persist with Harry Edwards. He's 24, he's shown a fair bit, and those who have written him off, I can't quite understand. So I thought it was a very odd call considering all of that. They can both play in the team together, Edwards and Brock, because, lo and behold, usually you play 2 key defenders, depending on the opposition, even though Marek plays a little bit taller and Jinby's playing a little bit taller, etc. But I thought it was, a bold decision from Andrew McQualter, perhaps a ruthless one, perhaps sending a strong message. It just didn't quite add up with all those things considered for mine. And I kind of felt for Harry, and I hope that he is coached through this to become a regular part of the team, because I personally feel that there is a player there.
The selection to me lacked a bit of footy feel, which is a weird thing to say, because I really trust the footy feel of Andrew McQualter.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Also, but Sandy Brock on Hogan was the wrong decision. Brock should have played on... Riccardi played, didn't he? And Cadman. So he could have played on either of those two.
Yeah.
You didn't have to play Marek tall. And Jimby doesn't have to play tall, as we know. So there was room for two. I'm happy that Brock played, and I think he... You know, it's weird that he comes out of it having kicked a massive bag of goals on him, but you think he's okay. But I'd like to see him get a run in the team. But it was just the wrong call for him to play on Hogan. So now he's like a meme now. You know, he's an easy target because he had 9 kicked on him on debut. So that sort of that's bad for him. It's bad for his confidence. And then you've got just potentially disgruntled Harry Edwards out of the team when he could have, you know, just stayed in the team and played on Hogan. Maybe does a better job. But at least there was a chop out. Like if Brock had 4 kicked on him in the first quarter, then you flick to Edwards and you can go back and forth. So, yeah, it lacked a bit of footy feel for me, which was disappointing. So I hope that Edwards comes back in and, you know, has the right attitude and, like you say, coach through it is a really good way of describing it because, like it or not, like we've kind of put a lot of eggs in the Harry Edwards basket, haven't we?
Yeah.
When we traded away Barras. And so he was showing some signs towards the back end of last year that it seemed like a fair enough decision. Anyway, so we're kind of invested now. We've bought a lot. It's sort of not dissimilar to the stock market right now. It's gone through a bit of a crash and we've just got to ride it out and hope that it gets back to where it needs to be. So, yeah, hopefully he comes in this week and we can see them together and see what it looks like.
Yeah. Besides that, I actually thought the defence tried really hard. I thought Jinby had a really good game. I thought he was our best player.
He's having a good season.
He was aggressive. He was zoning off, just like his game. I thought Marek tried really hard as well. We know Brady Hoff always does and does his absolute best. So the defence was okay. You could have Silvani, Djokovic, Scarlett down there. It's not going to make a difference when you get smashed out of the middle as easily as we do. So,
yeah.
But they're working hard and they're toiling back there. They just need the ball to come in a fair bit slower, and that's where our midfield needs to step up. So hopefully this week against Carlton, that happens and we see some changes in there and it gives the defence a chance. We'll get to that game in a moment, but there's a fair bit going on around the skipper as well. Oscar Allen.
Can I ask you?
And there are so many layers to the story. You take the lead on this. What do you make of it as it stands?
Can I ask you a really quick question?
Yeah.
Should Duggan go back to half back and Baker back in the midfield?
As I said before, I think Baker and Graham need to be at 80% of our stoppages, centre bounces, and playing in the midfield. We're not a chance without those two in there right now, especially with Yo out. If Yo was back, well then, different story. And it's frustrating with Yoey, isn't it? Like still 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, he finally gets his body right when he's in the last year of his contract, wins a new contract, now he's injured again.
Yeah, it's annoying. So, Oscar Allen. Let's go through the different layers of this. So I know how much media that we both consume. I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast has now heard just about every single point of view that could possibly be given on the Oscar Allen situation. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I have no issue with Oscar Allen meeting with other clubs because he's a free agent and he's entitled to do so. It was incredibly stupid to meet with a senior coach in person at a cafe or whatever it was out the back in a private area. Very stupid. It should have been done either at his home or be done over Zoom. The fact that it becomes public, the optics are horrendous and it's disrespectful by Oscar to allow it to become public and put pressure on the club because his teammates and everyone at the club is, you know, in the back of your head, you're like, yeah, Oscar's probably speaking to other clubs because he has to. But you don't want to have it shoved in your face because he's the captain, he's the leader. He has to be better than that in terms of keeping his business private. So that's where the issue is for me. It's an issue of disrespect to allow it to become public, and then everyone gets asked about it. Everyone has to deal with it. And you've got to do a press conference, do press releases. You know, it's just annoying for everyone. It's frustrating because everyone knows how the industry works, but you just don't want to have to address it and talk about it. So talk of him handing back the captaincy was too much. If he felt in his heart of hearts that he wanted to do that, sure, go for it. But no one was ever going to ask him to do it, and no one ever expected him to do it. His teammates probably wouldn't care at all. They're just like, whatever, mate, you do you. It's your contract. It's your career. You know, do what you've got to do. But it's just a distraction, and it's annoying for them to have to talk about it. The club also have put him in this situation, so they probably don't care that much either, but they care that then now they have to deal with it. So West Coast have quite possibly offered him unders and a shorter contract, and we're entitled to do so because we obviously don't think his knee is in the best place. He's also only ever had one good season in his career. Other clubs are trying to win a flag, Hawthorn and Brisbane. If they can get one or two good years out of him where he kicks 50 goals and they win a flag, then that pays for the contract 20 times over. So it's just a tough situation, which we've manufactured by not signing him up, but also we might have our reasons for doing so.
Yeah. Well said. Well summarised. As captain, he just didn't need to have the face-to-face meeting. He didn't even need to have a Zoom. Like, just send your agent. What's the difference? Message Sam Mitchell and say, listen, mate, I'm interested, obviously, but I'm captain of the club. I can't meet with you personally. My agent will do that, and he'll just do whatever you have to say. Appreciate your efforts. And then he feels better about himself, and it's the same result. He knows how badly Hawthorn wants him and what the offer is. I think the way we're playing this is fine, right? And we've been smashed, and I still see us being smashed over certain things like Barras being let go and so on. And yet those same people were smashing us for hanging on to certain players for too long. Hanging on to Gaff for too long, hanging on to Shuey for too long, Yo for too long, Darling for too long, etc. Now we're starting to be a bit ruthless, and we're getting smashed for that as well.
Yeah.
In terms of lengthy contracts and players who might be injury prone. So we can't really win in that space at the moment, but I think we're playing it fine. If they are not confident about Oscar's body, and if they feel as if we can get, and this would be the result of Oscar going, a top 5 pick at the worst as a result of the free agency compensation, it's probably a win, right? Now, if he accepts our offer that we've put down, well, great. He's a talented player. He's a leader of the club. He's a WA boy. He's always been the next golden boy of the club. There's still a lot to work with there, then fine. But if we feel this is all he's worth, and we don't want to pay more because we have concerns, we'll then stick to our guns. And if he goes somewhere else, well, that's fine. It gets messy because of the captaincy. It gets messy because we've had this perception of Oscar as being the next poster boy of the West Coast Eagles, right, which we've spoken about on this pod for a few years as well. And that's where things get muddled a bit. But sometimes you have to, I use this line a lot, just play the ball as it lies. And his body does not look to be in a great way. His form is not great. I'm sure his mind at the moment has a fair bit to do with that because he's probably all over the place. And I thought some of his efforts on the weekend were representative of that. But simple result is that, pick 3 or 4 or 5 is a damn good result considering where we are right now. And it's probably a win. And I don't know about you, Drew, but I'm probably taking that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm taking I think we'll quite possibly finish last, which means we get...
I don't. I think it's early days. I think we finish above Richmond. I really do.
Yeah, Richmond are not good, but they get that bonus win. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're either probably pick 2 and 3 or pick 1 and 2 if Oscar leaves. So, and that's we sort of need that. We need top-end talent, and we've got to get it in the door somehow. So it's a really tough situation. I feel sorry for Oscar Allen. He's a victim of circumstance here. Like, he debuted in 2018, and the way that we fell off the cliff was quite extraordinary. So he just slightly missed the window, didn't he? If things had have been a little bit different, he could have been spearheading a team that is at least competitive, still trying to, touch the bottom of parts of the 8 and, regenerating on the fly. Like West Coast in the 90s, post 94, we're still making the finals every year. We're bringing young players through and they're still in a competitive team and developing on the fly. That just hasn't happened this time around for us. So he's missed out, which is sad.
And then the other thing is Jake Waterman's emerged out of nowhere. Like, nobody thought Jake would become the player that he has, right? And they're a similar age. So he can be the next leader of the attack with Archer Reed, Jack Williams, and then Job Shanahan coming through, who there are big raps on. So if you're managing the list, you're Matty Clark and you're Don Pike and you're Andrew McWalter right now, you're looking at it and you're going, well, Like, do we need Oscar? All right, we can find a place for him because he's still a high-quality footballer who can probably find a way to play through his knee. But do we need him? No. And if we get that early pick, well, we're probably better off. So stick to our guns on this. And it's causing a bit of pain right now, but we might be better off in the long run. It's hurting us on and off the field at the moment. The Harley Reid situation, so plays half back on the weekend. Thought he played really nicely. I thought our three best were Jinby, Baker and Harley. So that's freed him up a little bit. Still like to see him go back into the midfield, but he had another mature performance, I thought. And now there's news that we've offered him a range of different contract options. It's given everyone a little bit of a lift. Doesn't necessarily mean he signs any of them, but it's great to see there's some movement in that space from us.
Yeah, so this has sort of been talked about for a while, the sort of layer, the different layers of the contract offers, which I think is a really smart way to play it. Just give him all the options on the table. It's sort of like, you throw out about 3 or 4 different little packets on the table in front of him. You're like, here you go, here are your options, choose from here, which I think in his current situation is good. So I didn't listen to what Cal said, but obviously, this has been discussed for a while. So is it like a 2-year extension, a 4, a 6, and 8? Like, is that sort of what we're thinking?
I think it was a 3 and a 5 year that are on the table.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a 2-year extension option there as well. Or maybe it's 3 and 5. And if he says no to that, well, then at least we can go down to 2. Right. So we've given ourselves some wriggle room in terms of negotiations, or even a 1 potentially, because he's still got 1 year to go, remember, after this year.
Yeah.
So he's still contracted for 2026. But there's a bit of wriggle room there. But right now we're playing the long-term contract offers and have put them to Harley Reid. So at least we're getting on the front foot.
Yeah, so the reporting I had on Reid last year, which I know was a while ago, was that there was no interest in even considering an extension until probably the end of the second year. And that sort of makes sense, doesn't it? Especially the way that we're playing right now. He probably wants to see how this year pans out. So what do you think at right now is the most likely scenario?
I think it's probably 40-60 against us right now. Maybe that's being generous. Maybe it's 30-70 against us in terms of him staying. The word is that he sees out next year at least, but it wouldn't shock if he asked for a trade at the end of this year. I still think a lot of it depends on how we go this season, and we're still very early on in the season, and our draw opens up considerably right now. Like we've got Carlton, Essendon, Melbourne, Richmond, St Kilda before round 10. Like, I know we're in a horrible spot, but it's not inconceivable that we win a couple of games in that stretch, right?
Yeah, we've had a hard start.
You could win 3 in that stretch, Essendon, Melbourne, Richmond potentially. So that might change things. You might go, all right, things are okay, and the Chad Warner stuff is still rumbling along. I heard some mail on the weekend that is still very much on. We saw that interview he did with Channel 10, which was a great get by them, which, flipped everything on its head. All the mail was he's signing with Sydney, and then he said, well, no, I'm still not sure. And so if he gets word that Chad's coming again, does that lend to him wanting to stay for a little bit longer? So we're still in the mix. We're still in the hunt, but, it does feel as if the tide is against us. So I'd say 35-65, I'd say, in terms of our chances of keeping him, be it at the end of this season or him signing an extension. Where would you sit on it?
I change every day. My most interesting, the scenario that interests me right now is if Harley rejects the contract offers this year flat out, would we consider getting on the front foot and trading him at the end of the year? That to avoid getting to running the contract down. That's the sort of interesting part for me. Like, our club's going to come for him in the off-season, and what's the deal that would turn our head? Just a couple of things on Warner. So
I wouldn't do that, by the way, unless the deal was crazy.
Yeah, the deal would have to be amazing. So
you've always got another year to try and convince him, and then if he has another big year, you get even more.
Yeah. My view on this is that Harley's going to have a big month against those teams, and that he'll get back into form, highlight reel Harley, and all of a sudden he'll be everyone's darling. In 4 weeks, it'll be footy shows showing his high marks, great goals. Oh, Harley Reid's back, blah, blah, blah. That's the storyline I see coming. Just on Warner, so supposedly there was a little frustration from Chad about how much discussion there was about his future, and the messaging from him is like, I want to put my head down and try and win games of footy, and I don't want to talk about this. So he's like very footy focused, it sounds like. And just a nugget for you. I actually can't give you all the information because it was told in extreme confidence, but I just think this is fun. There's a premiership player who contacted Chad and was like, if you're going back to WA, I would have interest also going back. So just like a fun little thing. Like if Chad comes home, we might be able to nab someone else if he chooses West Coast.
Darcy Cameron's a premiership player.
Hey, I didn't say anything.
Cozzy Pickett's a premiership player.
I'm not going to reveal anything, but I just think it's fun to speculate on who it might be. Darcy Cameron, I have interest in, FYI.
Oh, big
strong
time.
interest. So, yeah, there's options for West Coast. We could bounce quickly. Who knows?
Yeah, I did hear a bit of mail on the weekend that Cozzy, we're still in the mix for Cozzy Pickett, which some Eagles fans will go, have we got enough small forwards? And, don't we need to focus on top line midfielders? Because he can roll through the midfield as well.
He was good through the midfield on the weekend. He was one of their shining lights for sure. So I know we're running out of time here, Garby. Just quickly on Carlton, which
How much time we've got?
We've got 2 minutes. I look forward to going to this game at G Round, and I think we've got a shot at being competitive, but I also worry that Carlton will see this as an opportunity to finally get a win and maybe things will click.
Yeah, I'll just worry about our midfield. I think we can match them in other areas, and I think if it's another team that doesn't have as strong of an on-ball brigade, would be a chance. But Carlton's strength is Cripps, Hewitt, Walsh in there, TDK in the ruck, and that's our major weakness, as we know. So I just think we're going to get beaten too easily in there. I think if they were 1 or 2 down in there, then we can maybe match them, and around the ground would be okay. But I think they're going to overpower us on the ball, and that's going to be the difference. And they're going to be just so dead set on a win because of their horror start. We've got some players coming back though. So, Ryan, Waterman, Hutch, and then maybe Edwards could all come back into the team this week. Longo's out for mine. I think Brockman's in a lot of trouble. Davis probably goes out, and maybe Jack Williams as well, considering Waterman's, likely to come in.
Yep.
Petch kicked 4 in the waffle, but it doesn't seem like he's troubled. So it feels like the line's gone through him a bit.
Yeah, I think so. How good was Tom Gross, by the way?
Yeah, great. Really impressive signs.
Shining light.
Yeah. Now there's one there, and I reckon he stays in the team more often than not. And just
please.
Gets used to it.
Stay. All right, mate.
Go the Eagles. Hope we get the Blues a big run at least.
Big going on.
Big going on. Enjoy Adelaide, mate, and enjoy the game on Saturday.
Good man.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.